Welcome to 10 Minecraft jokes. Anyone can tell these, so feel free to use them to make your friends laugh. What is a creeper's favorite type of story? Mystery. What do you call a dumb skeleton? A bonehead. Why did Steve take a nap while mining? Because he found some bedrock. What is Steve's favorite band? Block Party. What did the teacher say to the curious jungle cat? You sure do ask a lot of questions. What is a pigman's favorite cereal? Golden Nuggets. How does Steve get his exercise? He runs around the block. What's a ghast's favorite country? The Netherlands. Did you hear about the creeper that went to a party? He had a blast. A Minecraft sailor is standing on a dock. Attached to a nearby post via an expertly and effortlessly tied knot is a small wooden boat. The sailor stared out across the water, the rhythm of his heart in sync with the sound of the boat bumping into the dock and the waves gently crashing into the wooden posts. A soft expression of discomfort barely managing to show itself through the deep cracks and wrinkles etched into his skin made it clear that he could only be at peace while on the open waves. A new rhythm entered the sonic landscape of the dock. The sound of footsteps stomping down the dock toward the weathered sailor eviscerated the atmosphere.
Well, I can tell those aren't the steps of someone who has their sea legs,
the weathered sailor said while turning to face the man. At the beginning of the dock, the old sailor saw a distraught young man who had nothing with him but a handful of raw iron and a hopeless expression on his face.
You must be the one who wrote to me about buying the old boat. You know, it was mighty difficult getting this ship's sea ready in the short amount of time you gave me.
Yes, sir, my name is Steve. As for the rush, I can only apologize and explain my story in the hopes that you'll understand, and also in the hopes that I can get some semblance of closure from sharing. You see, despite my naive appearance, I was once a great adventurer. I did everything from mining to crafting, and mining again. I traveled the whole world and was content to never stop moving. That is until I met the love of my life in a small village in the tundra. Her name was Lydia Militovich, and in a short while we were married, and in an even shorter while we had 4 beautiful children. I truly thought I had found peace and could live my life in this village, tending to my crops in the day and enjoying the company of fellow villagers and kin during the night. What a fool I was to think that the sins of my past would not come back to haunt me. For you see, dear sailor, 2 weeks ago in the dead of night, a clan of pillagers that I encountered in previous travels decided that they would finally enact their revenge on me. They went from house to house, and one by one the men fell, followed by the women, and eventually even the children. You must understand, my seafaring friend, this is not a village of warriors. They were peaceful farmers and shepherds, so I quickly understood nothing could be done to stop them. Indeed, even I was paralyzed by the screams of my companions, not out of fear, but out of shame. For you see, when the commotion began, I acted on instinct, and abandoned not just my home, but my family to these monsters. I hid on a small hill overlooking the village and watched the events unfold. I assure you I would have gone to help were it not for the shame I felt while staring in despair at the cataclysm my cowardice caused. I watched as they pulled each of my family members out of the home I built for them, which they proceeded to burn. Their laughs filled the air as much as the smoke did. Then the unthinkable happened. Their leader grabbed my wife, Lydia Militovich, by her hair and made a broad taunting gesture, as if he knew I was still watching. Then, he slit her throat. The sight of her limp body is imprinted on the inside of my eyelids. It is an image I will never be able to unsee, dear mariner. My wife's blood created a crimson pool and reflected the moonlight in a cruelly beautiful way, and I still feel as though I am drowning in that lucent puddle. Immediately after, I was forced to confront an even greater horror. as I realized that my 4 children were next for the executioner's axe. My friend, I hope you understand the gravity of the situation. If the fear of my family's last thoughts being of my abandonment wasn't enough to steel my nerves to the point I could act. Still, paralyzed with guilt, I watched as the leader ordered one of his petty thugs to take the life of my eldest son, Urakov Milomir Vyacheslavovich. However, just as he raised his sword above his head, an arrow came out of the darkness and pierced his skull. His lifeless corpse slumped down and lied next to my wives. I quickly came to understand that the arrow had been fired by one of those rattling monstrosities that lurk in the shadows but become brazen at night. Still, I felt powerless. Do you understand, my friend? Do you comprehend my pathos? Do you feel utter contempt for me as I do for myself? Despite there only being 3 confused villains remaining, I could not act or move in any way. Perhaps even a shout could have saved my family, but I was not able to do even that much. The leader made quick work of the unholy undead and then returned to his own unholy deeds. I broke into a cold sweat, and my heart began to race again. Before I could even prepare myself, he removed the head of my eldest son in one swing. His head landed gently in the lap of his mother as it had so many times in a past that seems like it never existed now. Is it cowardice to watch such things happen to the ones you love, my friend, or is there a strength in that? The leader decided my eldest daughter, Sasha Vladislavovich, was next. I couldn't make out his expression clearly in the dark, but from what I could see, he had a sinister look about him. I was worried he would see fit to violate my daughter, but thankfully he left her with her innocence. However, he had no qualms with taking her life. Perhaps the leader was bored by the menial task of destroying my family, as he decided to order his 2 subordinates to finish off my 2 remaining children. The first thug to follow his orders was standing in front of my son, Shmakov Artemovich, and he did not hesitate. He pulled a small dagger from his belt and stabbed my son in his heart. Any last shred of hope had left me by this point as I watched my youngest child, my daughter, Oleneva Irina Valentinovna, come face to face with her own mortality at the age of just 5 years old. I ask you, silent sailor, can the world be considered just when a young girl is forced to accept something so unfair? My tale does not end here, however, because the cosmos saw fit to have me suffer even more. Not from the death of my daughter, but from additional humiliation, as I noticed in the distance 3 of my fellow villagers quietly sneaking toward the bandits. These 3 that I recognized as simple farmers and shepherds found courage where I could not. I tell myself it is because of their ignorance of the threat, but I know it is an excuse. I watched as these peaceful villagers charged towards these scum with their farming equipment in hand and somehow successfully struck them down. I tell you now, sir, no one has ever experienced such a powerful, bittersweet sensation. I heard them shouting, asking my daughter where her father is, and if I was still alive. I realized that I could not face any of them. I'd rather them think I died in the fire than know the shameful truth. Just as I was accepting my resolution to stay quiet, I noticed another figure heading towards the group. In the dark, I could make out it was not holding any weapons. In fact, it had no arms at all. That's when the greatest terror struck me so far. Approaching the remnants of my family was a creature more self-destructive than even I had been in my youth. Were it to reach my daughter, I knew it would mean certain death for the remaining people in the village below, and for my eternal soul. And this is the most shameful part, dear sailor. Lesser men than yourself would execute me on the spot for uttering such truths as I am. For I did not shout a warning to the group, nor did I shout a warning to my youngest daughter, Oleneva Irina Valentinovna. I don't know whether it was my shame or cowardice, but I do know that this is the most selfish and unforgivable act I have ever committed. The fiend silently snuck up behind the men that saved my daughter, and before they could even turn around to understand what was happening, it exploded, leaving no trace of itself, or the men, or my daughter. All evidence of the villagers, my daughter, my family, and my soul had been incinerated in that blast. All day, those few seconds I watched the beast stand behind those brave farmers and shepherds before it exploded replay in my mind over and over, but those seconds feel like they last hours. At night when I sleep I have horrible dreams. I dream I look at my reflection in the crimson pool of my wife's blood and I am the creeper. I dream of myself ambushing my own daughter. I dream of every muscle in my body tensing up before exploding and turning into a billion particles of regret and remorse spreading into the atmosphere and staining the surrounding lands. So you understand, my compatriot, why I asked you to hasten the restoration of this vessel. I cannot bear to be here anymore. I must leave and seek redemption without a moment's rest. The only way to escape the violent undercurrents in the river of maroon blood that gushed from my family is with that boat. The sailor pauses for a moment and says,
Well, that's all well and good there, but you must not have gotten my last letter. I told you that I lost all my paddles in a fire recently, so you would have to bring your own oars. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere in the boat.
Steve responded, "What are you talking about? I brought a whole bunch of ores."
And so I'll get it all going, whilst it all disappear, time and time again, some way, somehow, to some place, till it's all
If you liked those jokes, make sure to like this video and share them with your friends.